Hey, welcome to episode 46 of Fresh Air with Five, the podcast. And this week has been a long, kind of marathonish week as it started on a Saturday and ends on a Friday. So there's 7 days of podcast listening that I do here this week and reflecting. And so there's a lot of content that I bring you, lots and lots of episodes. So I would like you to take a listen and keep listening through because you might hear something that would take you in a different direction and give you something new to listen to. This week I got a new set of headphones, so I'm trying those out. I was able to record my very first interview podcast for Fresh Air at 5 with a guest, and I heard myself on the Ignite Edtech podcast as we recorded about 7 or 8 weeks ago, and it finally aired. So that was fantastic and exciting. I encourage you to take a listen to the rest of what's going on here, and without further ado, here we go.
Hi, I'm Gabriel Carrillo from the Edtech Bites podcast, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome to Fresh Air at 5, the podcast. I'm your host, Bryon Carpenter. Fresh Air at 5 is my regular attempt to exercise by walking about my neighborhood to take in podcast content, then reflect in an unedited video, which I finally post to my Twitter channel. This podcast will be a regular collection of the audio from these selfie videos. You can follow me on Twitter at FreshAirAtFive or check out my website, BryonCarpenter.com, for other content I have created and collected. Saturday, November 6, 2021. I'm trying out some new headgear right now. Got some Jabra Elite 65 headphones that are an inheritance from my son who got the Elite 75s today. So I thought I'd check these out, see how they record, how they listen, and if I have a new set of headphones for Fresh Air at 5. All right, so this afternoon as I'm out walking, and it's a beautiful sunny afternoon, a little blustery, but the sun's shining, the rain is not falling. I listened to episode 74 of Sons of Technology podcast with Joe Marquez and Kyle Anderson. And this episode is an announcement about the format change and recording schedule change for the Sons of Technology podcast. Take a listen. They want to make this thing more about you and me and less about them, and how we as a community can drive learning forward with technology and other tools. So that's fantastic. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Kyle. Appreciate you guys. And so this is the beginning of episode 46 of Fresh Air at 5, and we'll be continuing to record this coming week. You know, I'm trying something new myself. I'm going to actually do an interview with a podcaster, someone that's new onto the scene, and so hopefully that works out, and we'll have that podcaster's voice in an episode of Fresh Air at 5 and taking on a little bit of a different format. So I'm just trying something new because why not? I can do that. All right, here come the dogs. Gotta go. Bye. Hey, PLN Sunday, November 7, 2021, out for an afternoon walk just before 5 o'clock p.m. So counts as Fresh Air at 5. And this afternoon as I was walking, I listened to the Innovators Mindset podcast, an interview with Josh Stamper on season 2, episode 45, Aspire to Lead. And Josh and George brought it to us today, and you need to take a listen to this. Thinking about leadership, and I've been thinking about leadership. How do you get there? What do you need to do? And do you just go, I want to be a leader? Or do you work on the traits of being a leader along the way so that you have some credibility when you get to that spot when someone asks you, do you want to be a leader? You can say, yes, this is what I have been able to accomplish. George, thanks for the reminder about the leadership qualities in Alberta. And I got to look for those myself here in British Columbia and make sure that I've got something to say about those as I move forward. And Josh, you inspire me. I appreciate hearing your story again, and in this platform with George. And I've got your book. I need to start reading that. Life is full and busy right now, and I need to put some effort into doing so that I can grow myself more as a leader. All right, thank you, gentlemen. Have a fabulous rest of your Sunday, and I'm going to try to watch a hockey game tonight, Vancouver Canucks, and see how they do. Enjoyed watching Formula One this afternoon out of Mexico City. Fantastic to watch. Inspiring. All right, have a fabulous day, everybody. We'll talk to you. I'll see you in the morning when it's dark. Okay, bye. Good morning, PLN. It is Monday, November 8th, 2021. I'm out for Fresh Air at 5 this morning, and it's a good day. It's a good day to start the week, and I had a good weekend, some rest this weekend, spent time with my family. It was very refreshing, so I'm hoping you did the same as well. This morning, as I stepped out the door, I listened to the Tom Schimmer Show with Tom Schimmer, and he had on guest of the show today, Pav Wander, who is a co-host of the Staff Room podcast, fantastic educator out of Toronto, and a keen learner and reflective practitioner. And so it was fantastic to listen to their conversation this morning as they talked about teacher voice and the place that teacher voice has in our system. And we're asked for our teacher voice at different points of discussion about policy and about curriculum and things like that. And then we get frustrated that our voice isn't heard. And we have to be more open-minded, I believe, as educators and teachers, that, we have said our part and there's reasons why our voice wasn't heard. I'm hoping that teacher voices are heard. I believe my voice is heard in my school, and I'm hoping that others have their voices heard. Thanks, Pav, for your thoughts. Appreciate that. And you are doing such an amazing job. Keep going with the Mai Tai. And I like how you brought that anecdote of, when are we ever going to use this? And let's get to the good stuff of our learning instead of just drill and kill and repeated practice and mastering and perfecting those skills. All right, fantastic. All right, and at the outset, Tom, you talked about what'd you talk about? You talked about, it was really good, about looking at the disproportionate advance of people through society and how Malcolm Gladwell talks about in Outliers about success. Hang on one sec, gotta come back. One more thing for November 8, 2021, continuing my reflection on episode 49 of the Tom Schimmer Show. Tom, you talked at the outset about success and about the opportunity that we see in our spaces as situations are set up so that we can kind of walk into those successful things. I had an experience when I was in undergrad that I walked into a project at the right moment in time, and within a week of being in the chemistry lab working on this project, my supervisor, the postdoc I was working with, looked at me and he goes, "We can get a paper out of this." And I'm going, "What can we get a paper out of?" And it was there at that right moment in time that I got my first publication as an undergraduate student in something that was such a simple thing, but wasn't realized until after I was there. And I got to be included in the publication of that paper. Super awesome. Had I not been there at that moment in time, my name wouldn't be first on a chemistry paper in asymmetric this asymmetric chemistry journal that came out. And so it was fantastic, an opportunity. And yes, it is, being in the right place at the right time does tend for those things before we even get to our skill and talents that we have. So that's something to think about. Really good. Take a listen to what Tom has to say about that. And then at the end, we're talking about alternative ways for assessment and looking at the differences between percentages and performance standards, scales. And, these are the things that I'm struggling with, Tom. And that's one of the reasons why I want to be a winner of the 12 for 12 contest. And I'm going to get my post up here soon and get a bunch of people to subscribe so that you can pick me and help work on the assessment practices that I have and how I need to shore those up and fix those up and be mindful of my students in this process. All right, that's it, everybody. Have a fabulous Monday. We'll talk to you soon. Okay, take care. Bye. Hey, PLN, November 9, 2021. It's a drizzly day out here in British Columbia, and I'm out for FreshAirAtFive walking and listening. And this morning, I got to listen to my friend Chris Nessie of the House of Edtech. And Chris, thanks so much for bringing us another episode of your podcast, episode 189. You are a model of consistency and determination and showing that you can do this for a long time, and that's admirable to someone like myself, as I just got started this past January with your help, and it's fantastic to see. Chris, I got some news for you that I am going to be having my very first interview on my podcast, FreshAirAtFive, coming up this coming Wednesday, which is tomorrow, and I'm going to be interviewing Cami Cannikins, as she is a tech coach out of southeastern Alberta in the Medicine Hat area, and she is going to join me because she said that my podcast has had an influence on her and encouraged her to start her podcast called Prairie Rose Possibilities. So people, go take a listen to Prairie Rose Possibilities, and it's about her talking with district leaders in their district about projects that are going on in their schools with students, and how they're using this idea of promoting projects to share and grow and encourage each other in this district that's spread across the rural southeastern part of Alberta, Canada. So I'm going to be meeting with Cami, which is awesome. Cami's going to actually be hearing me talk about this today, as she listens on Twitter likely, and so I'm excited about that. And Chris, you bring up some good points about EdTech burnout and how we are using technology, and are we using too much? Man, for you to say, are we using too much technology? It has to be very intentional how we're using it so that we keep our students in a safe learning space and not in a state of overwhelm. All right, have a good day, everybody. Thanks so much. I'm out walking, and that's where I listen to House of EdTech. Bye. One more thing for November 9, 2021. I just listened to Science 360 podcast. Can't recall the episode, but it is the new episode that came out where Tim Stevenson, Astro Stevenson, talks with acclaimed filmmaker Craig Leeson. And Craig has created such films as The Plastic Ocean and a couple other films. There's one coming out soon about glaciers and fresh water that he recorded, and I'm looking forward to even taking a look at the plastic ocean, because I haven't done so yet, and I should do so, because, well, I live on this planet and I gotta see the impact that drinking straw is having on my planet, and how I can curb and embrace the paper straw. True story, I really like the plastic straw, don't like the paper straw so much, but is it what I like, or is it what's good for the planet? All right, so thanks, Tim, for bringing us this episode. Thank you for the captivating conversation that you had with yet another person that's making a difference out there in the world and sharing their content much, much beyond the walls of a classroom, but into people's homes and into people's minds, and affecting boardrooms of businesses that are, capitalizing on the economy and and about energy and how we use energy. And so that is really, really great. What's also cool, Tim, is that you recorded this in front of your students because that was when you could connect with Craig Leeson. And I think that is a fantastic way to model how we can use our technology tools to create. So bravo to you, brother. That's great, Craig. Thank you so much for sharing with Tim and his class. That is awesome. That is incredible that you took the time to talk to a classroom in British Columbia, just down the road from where I live, near Vancouver, Canada, where Tim and I both live. All right, have a fabulous day. Enjoy the rest of your day. I have one more podcast to listen to, and I'm enjoying this fresh air, the fresh air on our planet. So let's keep it fresh. All right, peace out. Bye. One last thing for November 9, 2021. Coming home here, I listened to Mindset Monday with George Koros. And George, thank you for bringing us episode 6 of Mindset Monday as you talk about gratitude and how gratitude needs to be a mindset because it has such a positive impact on ourselves and those around us. There is medical history that says it helps out with mental health and mental well-being and happiness. So fantastic. Appreciate that. George, I want to say thank you to you. I appreciate you and the work that you do. I see the podcast card come up. It's yellow. It's got George's smiling face. And you know, George, that actually brings me joy because I know that this podcast recording that you do brings you joy. And so as I listened this morning, for this, you had this come out yesterday. You talked about 3 questions, 2 from Richard Denning from back in the day. Don't know how far back in the day, but 2 questions, and then you added a 3rd. The 3 questions to consider for yourself as you reflect on your day are this. Have I learned something today? Have I done something to inspire another today? And am I thankful for something today? And so, yes, so those are important questions for myself. Have I learned something today? It's so early yet, but I did learn something. I got these new earbuds in my ears, the Jabra Elite 65s, and they are not wired. They don't have a wire connecting the 2 sides. And one of them fell out while I was out walking this morning in the rain and fell on the ground. And I was like, oh no, where is it? So I learned how to take better care of the headphones. Have I done something to inspire someone today? Well, my son got up early and I got him out the door, gave him a hug. So I'm trusting that inspired him. And am I grateful for something today? I am grateful for this fresh air that I get to walk in my neighborhood and seeing the nature and the clouds and the beauty around me. So those are the things I'm grateful for. All right, have a fabulous day, people. Take a listen to George's Mindset Monday. Peace out. Okay, bye. Hey PLN, Wednesday, November 10th, 2021. This morning for Fresh Air at 5, the air is clear, there's no rain falling, and I'm out enjoying my morning. And I got to enjoy that listening to Eric and Nick on Edtech, the podcast, episode 98. Gentlemen, you guys put together some amazing shows, and congrats on the high listenership of episode 97 where you talked about gamification. And I think this episode on blended learning and Edtech to support blended learning will be one of those types of shows as well, because the amount of content that you dropped in one place and curated for us, and the show notes alone are worth even just taking a look at if you're not listening to the podcast. But the podcast obviously puts a whole lot of content or context into why you're saying what you're saying, is really, really good. And as an online teacher that has moved back and forth between the face-to-face classroom and the fully online, the words and stuff that you're talking about tools for levels of blended learning. And I have a diagram I show when I talk about blended learning that goes from the traditional face-to-face only with no tech to fully online, which is all tech, and the space in between can go from anything as simple as how do we use online resources just to simply provide a single video to a student or our students so that they can have that content available to them, all the way to almost 100% online, where you're using a flipped classroom, they're doing all their work that way, and you as a teacher are a facilitator only. So there's lots of ways to do it, and I appreciate that. One thing that I like to do is take QR codes, put them into our school newsletter along with a bit.ly. So not just the QR code is a link, but a bit.ly as well. That's simple enough that somebody can type it in if they don't even have a phone to scan it. All right, boys, talk to you. Bye. Hey, PLN, it is Thursday, Remembrance Day, November 11th, 2021. Just out finishing up Fresh Air at 5 this morning. Got up late and got at it. So this morning as I'm out walking, I listened to episode 67 of the Educational Duct Tape podcast with Jake Miller, and he had on guests Jenny Long and Sarah Lee Clark, and they are educational technology wizards doing some stuff. They just released the Microsoft Teams playbook that came out just recently, and so they've got lots of content in there about resources and ways to use apps and context for those things. So go check that out. I really like to hear the discussion about Buncee and Canva for education and PowerPoint, and about basically using tools that are in your space so that you can create and get kids creating, and how can you do that as easily as possible, and in novel ways, and giving them transferable skills from one app to another. Fantastic, Jake, appreciate it. Thanks for your book. Thank you for your podcast, and keep on doing what you're doing, everybody. And lest we forget, pause at 11 o'clock this morning. Okay, I'm heading out to deliver papers. I'll listen to another couple podcasts while I'm doing that. Thanks, bye. One more thing for November 11th, 2021. Out delivering papers now, and I just listened to episode 45 of Fresh Air at 5, the podcast. Yes, that's my podcast. I don't listen to it often, but when I do, it's because this was the very first for the podcast, and that I had an interview episode. The very first interview episode that I've ever had was with Cami Cannikins out of southeastern Alberta, and she joined me on my podcast for an interview so that we could talk about her podcast, Prairie Possibilities Podcast. And they're a very small district in southern eastern Alberta, and how she has used podcasting to amplify and share the learning that's going on in their school district with educators across their school district. And well, she put it out there, I heard about it, and now I've been listening. And it was a great conversation to hear how sharing promotes growth and the growth mindset, and that there's more to where you are than right where you are if you use a platform such as podcasting. So fantastic. Thank you, Cami, for joining me. It was a lot of firsts for both of us. My first time actually hosting my very own From Start to Finish podcast. I've been a guest on other podcasts, and that was pretty exciting to be able to do that for myself for the first time. Having Cami on was great. She was my very first guest for an interview podcast. I'll do those in the future. Not sure how frequent, but it's great that we could have a short conversation. And so funny how such a small world it is that our paths, came close to crossing over and over in the past. So take a listen, encourage others to take a listen. And thanks so much, Cami, for being my very first guest. Have a great day. One more thing for November 11th, 2021. I just finished listening to the Innovators Mindset podcast, 3 questions with educators that inspire. And George talked with Dr. Sean Carey, who's the superintendent out there somewhere. And you should take a listen, because it's great to hear how this superintendent is very serious about education, but he doesn't take himself too seriously. And we need to remember that as educators. And he talks about an administrator and a teacher that made a difference in his life. And thank you so much, Sean, for sharing your story. Thanks, George, for bringing it. And you know what? Those 3 questions, it's important for us to hear how we answer those 3 questions from each other, because, it keeps us human. We need to remember that this is a human thing that we're doing, and education is a human endeavor. All right. Have a good day. Got one more podcast to listen to before I'm done for today. Okay, bye. One more thing. For November 11th, 2021, I just listened to the 10-Minute Teacher podcast with Tisha Poncio as guest with Vicki Davis as they talk about 5 tips for student portfolios. And Tisha brings the magic again in such a concise and collected way. And Tisha, thank you so much for sharing your understanding of student portfolios and how to go about that. There are 5 steps here, people, that things to consider as we start up student portfolios and why we would do that. How to make portfolios. I'm learning more about portfolios. I've kind of dabbled with them, but I haven't really taken that step yet. So I'm working on taking that step, and thank you for your information that you brought. And this guy is going to give it a try with the photography project with his grade 9s and 10s coming up, how we can curate our photos and create a photo portfolio for even just one of our projects that we could put into another space beyond. All right, thanks all. Have a good one. And I got maybe one more podcast to listen to as I got one more section of a paper route to do. Okay, bye. One last thing for November 11, 2021. I've wrapped up my paper route, and I've also listened to episode 176 of Neuroscience Meets SEL, the podcast with Andrea Samadi. And Andrea, you bring us a pretty packed, fully loaded, not just one thought, but many thoughts podcast today as you talk about understanding the neuroscience of communication and why our brain doesn't like the word no. You talked about a book written back in 1987 by Jack Caros about communication and how about brevity in our communication and keeping an idea to under 10 words so that we don't allow emotions to get involved before we have a chance to hear what has been said. So that's what my takeaway from that was. Another thing that you talked about was negative thoughts and how those negative thoughts can affect our forward progress and our ability to move forward in things that we are doing, and positive needs to be there. So listening to the positive words so that we're not hearing the negative words is important. And then you gave 5 strategies for leadership at the end, and I did not catch most of those, but they're there and they're good. And I'm going to go back and take a listen because that'll help move forward my understanding of leadership and just little things that I can do for strategies to make a difference more in my space. All right, have a good day, everybody. It is a blustery day and cold, about 8 degrees Celsius out now. Just finished papers and enjoying the fall weather, even though it is a bit chilly. All right, have a good one. Take care. Bye. Hey PLN, Friday, November 12th, 2021. What a full week it's been. It's been a really good week, and I'm super excited to be here at Friday because it is Friday and I get to go fishing tomorrow. So I'm looking forward to that. So this morning as I stepped out the door, I saw in my podcatcher the Ignite Edtech podcast with Craig Kemp out of Singapore and episode number 72. And I saw my name in the title because I was a guest on Craig's show back at the beginning of September, and he has put that podcast out, and it was exciting to re-listen to what I talked about and the things that I said. And it's that reflective process, listening to yourself talk to somebody else that's important about things that are important to you. You hear yourself say the things that you think you are saying all the time, and it is encouraging. So thanks, Craig, for amplifying teacher voices. Thank you for bringing teachers to other teachers to amplify their stories and share their learning so that they can continue to make a difference in this world. All right, so Craig, you asked a question about EdTech integration and what's the device count look like in your space. My school, as we heard, is an online school, as well as we have blended learning classes, and students come into our building. And so our students that come into the building are bring your own device. So they have their own devices, which present some challenges of incongruity of operating systems and levels of speed and things like that. But we work to be able to support students that are running a Chromebook, which means that everybody else should be able to. We don't allow our students to use tablets or iPhones for instructional learning. My students in my media class, I allow them to use it for taking photos and videos, but not for taking in the content of the classroom. They need a Chromebook for that. So our district, we have a pretty good technology roadmap that is pretty engaged with having devices in every classroom. Chromebooks came to our district, and now we have probably better than 5,000 Chromebooks in our district and better than 4,000 iPads. All right, thanks, Craig. Have a great day. Bye. One more thing for November 12th, 2021. I just listened to episode 208 of Teachers on Fire podcast as Tim Cavey brings us a tale of two short story projects, and how these two short story projects from different perspectives in his teaching career have taken the life and joy that he has had for teaching out, and the other one that has reinstalled that teacher fire and brought joy to the process. So take a listen to Tim's podcast. It's quick, it's about 9 minutes long, and if you are an English teacher, I encourage you to take a listen to this. Share this with your English teacher colleagues, because the process of writing and reviewing every bit of work that our students do, yes, that's important that we do that. But how do we do that? How and who is part of that assessment process and that review process? And how can we use the technology at hand to do so? With Google Docs and slides and Google Classroom, collaboration is now a lot easier than it used to be back before this technology was here. So simply using Google Classroom and Google Docs to get students to peer review each other's work and add comments to each other's work is a fabulous way to get them involved in the writing process, to see other work that other people are doing, and to improve themselves as they do it. So thanks, Tim, for sharing your story. Appreciate that. And you can also go find the written part of this episode on Medium. I believe Tim's posting it there still. And yes, take a listen to his roundtable tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock a.m. Pacific time, because he has guests on. They talk about a number of great topics, and it's there for you to listen to after the fact on his YouTube channel as well. All right, happy day all. I got one more to listen to before I'm done, and then it's the weekend. All right, bye. One last thing for November 12th, 2021. This morning as I get close to home, I'm wrapping up my week. I saw Lindsay Titus's podcast, YOUniveristy, in my podcatcher, and it's been a while, Lindsay, since I've listened, and I'm glad to be back to listening, because the content of your podcast on episode 90 is the second part of a 4-part series. You're talking about energy and where are we getting our energy in our day, and what are we listening to? And it was titled Getting Lost on Purpose, and how do we get lost in content and we create meaning. So we can take in all this content all the time, but if we are not creating meaning for ourselves and creating with that, then all we're doing is consuming. You know, I do an activity with my students in my class about creation and consumption, and I have them put down 10 icons that describe themselves. And then the next day I have them look at what activities are creative for you and what are consumptive for you. And it's important that we're aware of this. You dig a lot deeper than what that level is in your podcast, and it's important that we be mindful of what we're taking in so that we can understand how that affects our energy. So good to listen to you again, Lindsay. Thanks so much. And I like this talk. You know, it's newish for me because it's something that's been going on for me for a long time, but to put labels on it and call it something, you know, that the things that I am taking in is like energy, like food energy or brain energy, and how that affects my output and my well-being. All right, thanks so much. Have a great day all. This is the end of episode 46 of Fresh Air at 5, the podcast. Happy Friday. Bye. As my one word for 2021 is appreciate, I appreciate you giving me a listen as I've created this podcast experience for you. It's a unique Blinkist or Coles Notes version of the content I take in, like a highlight reel, so that you can hopefully find other interesting podcasts you may not have considered before. I've recorded the specific podcast episodes in the show notes for your learning convenience. Please subscribe so you don't miss any of my upcoming episodes. And if you enjoy this podcast and its format, share it with someone else. tweet about your experience, or give it a review on Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to podcasts. Fresh Air at 5 can also be found on Voice Ed Radio. Your voice is right here, and on the Education Podcast Network, podcasts for educators, podcasts by educators. I hope you have a fantastic day and get some fresh air before the day is out, and take care of yourself because you're worth it.